What's up everybody, it's Seth from Fowler Customs, and today I'm reviewing the Nike LunarEpic Low Flyknit. Thanks so much for tuning in today guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet, but with all that being said, let's get into it. So the Nike LunarEpic Low Flyknit, that's a long name and I don't even think I'm saying it right. I actually think, you know what, let me check. I totally wasn't saying it right. It's the Nike LunarEpic Low Flyknit 2. Regardless, this is the shoe and it just came out a couple days ago, and it was a shoe that in the first iteration in the Lunar Epic 1 was a shoe I was really interested in trying, but I just never had the time or the money or whatever it was to actually grab a pair. So I figured when the second pair would release, I'd grab them and try them out. So right now this is the only version of the Lunar Epic 2. When they first released the Lunar Epic 1, it first came out in a high top version, which basically was the same shoe on the bottom but had this sock on the top that kind of made it a high top. But I don't know how much of a high it actually was. This time around, they've only released one version of the shoe so far. It's the Lunar Epic 2 Low, and personally, I like the low form factor better. I think it looks a lot better. That sock, although runners said that it was kind of nice, just didn't really work for me visually. I thought that it was a little too much. Also, I was never really a fan of the Adidas Tubular Dooms, specifically for that reason, for that sock-like upper. Never really loved it. So I was really happy to see that when Nike actually released the Lunar Epic 2, it didn't have that sock-like upper, and it was just a low-top version. However, since they're calling this a low, I wouldn't be surprised if a high version came out sooner than later. But as of right now, this is the shoe that we've got, so let's get into the materials. First off, a majority of the upper is made up of Flyknit, which is really breathable, really flexible, and it actually contains your foot surprisingly well. There's a bunch of different colorways available. I got the olive green colorway because I didn't have any other olive green shoes, and I'm probably gonna wear this mainly casually just because I like the way it looks and it's super comfortable. As I mentioned, the Flyknit material is very flexible. However, it's not as flexible as PrimeKnit that Adidas uses on the Ultra Boost. For running, I really prefer more containment than more flexibility so that my foot doesn't feel like it's kind of loose and just swishing around or moving around inside the shoe. Moving towards the midfoot of the shoe, you'll notice that the laces are held in place by flywire. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically flywire are these little wires or threads that run throughout the upper of the shoe that hold the laces in place. And whenever you tighten the laces, it pulls the flywire together, which in turn pulls the upper together, giving you a much tighter fit. That's one of Nike's major technologies. They use it in a lot of their running shoes, also a lot of their basketball shoes, and it does a pretty good job of containing your foot. Moving back on the shoe, if you're familiar with the Lunar Epic 1 at all, you'll notice that the Lunar Epic 2 is actually a one-piece booty construction upper. Basically what that means is that it doesn't have its own separate tongue. The tongue is actually connected to the rest of the upper, essentially making this shoe a slip-on. And a lot of times when I was wearing the shoe casually, I actually wore it unlaced because I just really didn't even need the laces. However, when I took them to the gym, I ended up lacing them up just because I wanted a slightly more snug fit. You've got this black neoprene lining, which is actually super comfortable. Actually, my favorite part of the shoe was the upper. It fit really true to size. The fit was great. I loved it. The Flyknit was super breathable. I didn't have any problems there. And for working out and running, the containment was just awesome. You've got this pretty thin foam insole, which doesn't really add too much for comfort, but it doesn't hurt. Moving to the heel of the shoe, you've got this fuse overlay that acts as a heel counter and actually does give you some pretty good heel lockdown, so I had no complaints there. You've also got this little hit of 3M for if you're running at night, I guess. I mean, I don't think it's gonna do too much, but hey, at least it's there. Moving down the shoe, you've got the most distinguishing feature of the Lunar Epic line, which is this flex groove filled midsole. The reason Nike added these flex grooves is because the midsole is actually made up of two different materials. You've got your standard foamy rubber on the outside, and then the entire inside of the midsole is actually made up of Lunarlon. It's not Boost, but people who are buying this shoe probably want a more firm cushion anyway, so they probably don't care. But moving back to the flex grooves, the reason they're there is because Lunarlon is such a soft and flexible material. They needed to add the flex grooves to allow the midsole to compress to accommodate the Lunarlon. I also don't hate the way they look. They kind of give the shoe sort of like a retro or kind of just different look that a lot of other shoes just don't have. Finally, moving to the outsole of the shoe, you'll notice all this bright green Lunarlon separated by all these little flex pods. That's what Nike calls them. That wasn't my name. They called them flex pods. I guess that's descriptive. I could have called it something cooler. Pro units. Pro flex units. Heat map pods. Mountainscapes. Their name really isn't that bad. Flex pods is fine. I obviously can't come up with anything better. So these flex pods are strategically placed on the outsole where your foot strikes the most and needs the most cushion. Nike says that when your foot hits the ground on one of these flex pods, the flex grooves actually diffuse the hit and make it a more comfortable ride. And I gotta be honest, I think they worked. One thing I will say though, and I really need to grab the other shoe to show you this because I cleaned off this outsole for the video, hold on, is that if you walk over any gravel or in my case salt, the flex grooves just end up picking it all up and just getting stretched out and bent out of shape, and it didn't really seem to affect the ride too much, but I was dropping salt all over the office as it kind of popped out of the flex grooves. So I'm not a huge fan of that, and it really makes the bottom of the shoe just look bad, but you know what? I guess it could be worse. But I think that's just an inherent problem with the flex groove system, and I'm not sure because I haven't run in these enough, but I'm wondering if too much dirt and too much stuff gets caught up in the flex groove, if that actually changes the performance. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't notice anything with this amount of dirt, which to be honest isn't that much, but it's just something to keep in mind. Overall, this is a pretty solid shoe. It gives you great containment, it gives you really nice cushioning, but it's a little bit more firm than the Ultra Boost. So if you're mainly running, this is probably a better way to go than the Ultra Boost. If you like a firmer ride, because I know some people don't like the Ultra Boost just because it's too cushy and it's too cushiony. And at 160 bucks, it's really not that cheap. It's actually probably more in the mid to high range of running sneakers. So for that reason, I'd say this shoe is for more casual runners. It can be used for more serious runners as well, but the people who are really serious about running distance and things like that are probably going to go for more of an ASIC or a brand that makes primarily running shoes, and that's their specialty. But like I said, this really is a great all-around performer, and if you prefer a firmer ride to the Ultra Boost, this might be the way to go. And it's 20 bucks cheaper. And to be honest, it's a super comfortable shoe, and it's really not a bad looking lifestyle shoe either. Now that we've got the review out of the way, let's throw these guys on feet and see how they look. That's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Make sure to leave a comment in the comment section down below letting me know what your favorite Nike runner is. And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to Fowler Customs if you want to see more content just like this. And follow Fowler Customs in all other forms of social media.